The 4th of July, the American Independence Day, a day we celebrate the birth of our great nation. A day we have a legitimate excuse to indulge limitlessly on juicy hamburgers and creamy homemade pies. And let's not forget the 155 million hot dogs we consume on this special day, and also the fact that we spend about $92 million on chips and $167 million on watermelon. Yum! On this happy annual day off from all the work we ever had, we enjoy the local parade, waving the beautiful colors of the American flag. When people across the entire nation gather together with their friends and family to feast, play, and finally watch the big, booming, colorful fireworks after sunset. Independence Day, a day married men celebrate something they once had, and women celebrate to live in a free country where every man can do as his wife pleases. Most of us, young and old, have learned about early America in our school days. However, were we taught about the whole incident that took place? Perhaps not. Yes, most of us know about the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the Revolutionary War. But the 4th of July itself has a pretty interesting, nearly 250-year-old history. Obviously, the 4th day of July was not always about barbecues and parades and fireworks. Rather, the story was about how bands of rebels were fighting for independence from the British, picturing a day each colony could be its own self-governing entity. The initial battles of the Revolutionary War began in 1775, which involved only some of the colonies. But by 1776, representatives from all 13 colonies, which is now the east coast of the US, had decided to declare independence. That hot month of July in 1776, the Continental Congress, which was the governing body of the 13 colonies, voted in favor of independence. The Declaration of Independence was then adopted, the historic document that changed the future of the colonies and formed a new nation, the United States of America. It's quite well known that Thomas Jefferson was the author of the Declaration of Independence, and indeed he was the man responsible for drafting a statement which was basically the reasons as to why the 13 colonies should break from Britain. That's right, drafting it. Jefferson wasn't recognized as its principal author until the 1790s. The document itself was written by 5 men who made a committee to get the job done: Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Roger Sherman, Robert Livingston, and of course, Jefferson himself. However, some of the most famous lines of the Declaration of Independence that we all know and remember off the top of our heads were the words of Jefferson. For example, the second sentence of the preamble, which begins, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." That's how we know it. But that was after the committee of 5 men did their corrections to Jefferson's draft, in which the pursuit of happiness was initially the pursuit of property. Apparently, it was Benjamin Franklin who patted Jefferson on the back. "Bro, we can't put this line in the document. It doesn't make us sound nice, dude. Property? Really? That's too narrow. Let's change it to love, happiness, something like that." Alright, I may have pictured it a bit differently, but you get my point. And along with that tiny itsy-bitsy correction, the committee also deleted a whole portion of Jefferson's drafts, the portion where he called slavery a cruel war against human nature, although he owned more than 200 slaves himself in 1776. In his draft, Jefferson denounced King George III for creating and sustaining the slave trade, which was false. This story behind the Declaration of Independence actually brings about a pretty bold question. For a document that stated that all men were created equal with certain rights among life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, did this declaration only apply to some and not to others? Since the Declaration of Independence was adopted before slavery had been abolished, Some believe it was not meant to apply to all people, at least for the time being. However, others like Martin Luther King Jr. would disagree in his speech, "I Have a Dream," that states, when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights. What's the bigger question though? Let's all just assume all these men were referring to women as well. And speaking of women, a signature of a woman does appear on the copies of the Declaration of Independence, Mary Catherine Goddard, the lady commissioned by Congress to print copies of the document. She was a well-known patriot and one of the first women publishers in the country. We don't really know why she signed her name along with all these other men, but it's a good thing she did, isn't it? Now going to the next surprising fact. The famous Declaration of Independence wasn't necessarily even signed on the 4th of July. It was on the 2nd of July that the Continental Congress had made up their mind. Hey, we want to be independent from British rule. And so, John Adams, who later became our second president, was like, "Awesome man, we gotta celebrate this occasion." He wrote a letter to his wife telling her the 2nd of July would be the most memorable epic of the history of America. But unfortunately, not everyone agreed with him. The Declaration of Independence was only finalized as a written document on the 4th of July, the date which appears on the document itself. And by the way, unlike us who stuff ourselves with burgers and hot dogs, John Adams and his wife actually had turtle soup that day. What a way to celebrate! Although I've never had turtle soup. Comment down in the section below if you have ever had turtle soup and would like to celebrate Independence Day with a bucket load of it. But the question that arises here is that, should we be celebrating on the 2nd or on the 4th? Or maybe we shouldn't even be celebrating in July at all, because the Declaration of Independence wasn't actually signed until August 2nd of 1776, about a whole month later. However, when we look at it from another perspective, we had been working on declaring our independence for years even before 1776. In 1773, the Boston Tea Party took place as a protest against British taxation of colonial tea. Yeah, American colonists were all about their tea. They didn't want just any kind of tea, they wanted liberty. In 1774, the First Continental Congress began meeting to discuss about Britain imposing unfair laws on the colonies. And in 1775, when the Revolutionary War began on April 19th with the battles at Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts, and would continue until 1783 with America's victory at Yorktown, New York. Whatever the case may be, 2nd or 4th of July, or even in August, we sure all agree that our nation was founded in 1776. So it makes sense that it be a national holiday starting 1777, right? Nope. Congress didn't approve a bill to make Independence Day an official holiday until 1870, 94 years after the Declaration of Independence was signed. The first official celebration, however, did take place the following year, in 1777 in Philadelphia, in which John Adams decided not to go, and we can all guess why. That turtle soup was all too good. At the first celebration of the birth of our nation, 13 cannons were fired, 1 round for each state of the Union. Bells were rung and fireworks were set off. According to historians, the tradition of the spectacular fireworks show we enjoy every year grew from there. Americans import 307.8 million worth every year. But be careful, fireworks are also notoriously dangerous. Let's just say, on average, about 45,000 people visit hospital emergency rooms on July 4th and 5th. Now, on with the celebration. Where did the tradition of grilling come from? This one's debatable. Grilling didn't start until the early 1800s, however, Virginia colonists had been barbecuing animals for years, a tradition that they got from the West Indies. Others say the tradition started when political leaders began staging rallies to mark Independence Day. Large crowds were drawn to these rallies and massive barbecues were hosted. And finally, it wasn't until 1972 that Nathan's Famous marked Independence Day with the hot dog eating contest, which has been going on every year since. In 2018, Joey Chestnut scarfed down 74 of those francs, breaking his own world record. And that was the 11th time Chestnut won the annual Nathan's Hot Dogs eating competition. That just wasn't enough, my belly's still rumbling. So there you have it, in the spirit of this much anticipated holiday filled with barbecues, fireworks, and unending hot dogs, these were some of the lesser known facts about the American Independence Day. What will you be doing on the 4th of July this year? A trip to the library to find out more about the history of our beloved country, the United States of America? Or, like most of us Americans, kick back, relax, and watch the fireworks? Comment down in the section below. If you liked our video, don't forget to subscribe and click the thumbs up. Share this video with your friends and family this Independence Day. And check out our channel for more awesome videos on various other topics because you know it's interesting.